Okay, sorry about that, guys. Running just a little bit late, but I think we are ready. So let's go ahead and settle in. We've got just a little bit of book left. I think we looked ahead last night, and we've got one chapter, and then a little bit of a preview slash teaser for the next book. And then we'll be able to sit back and relax and talk about what we thought about the book, our highs, lows, impressions, just a general vibe check. So we got lots to cover tonight, even though we'll probably have a relatively short stream this time. I managed to tear myself away from Factorio this evening so we can finish up. I swear you can just lose yourself for entire days if you let yourself. So let's go ahead and jump right back into things. We have one chapter left. Last time we saw the climactic confrontation between the armies of the Alliance as well as the Horde from the Conclave. We saw the magic snook in action, and we saw Lark and his father finally come face to face for presumably the last time. So let's go ahead and jump. Oh well, I almost in the recap I almost missed the almost afterthought from Lark, but man popped the question right before passing out. Blood on his hands still, and just, you know what? Man's got priorities. So, let's jump back into it. He should be waking up right around now. And we will see how things play out in the last chapter of Archblade, Legend of the Defiler. And so we resume our story with chapter 27. If I fail, I can die happy, knowing you will carry on my mission. Never give up on your passion, my son, because you will soon need it more than ever. Lark groaned as he stirred from his sleep. His side felt stiff, but to his delight, it no longer hurt. Judging by the familiar acrid, clean smell and the starchy feel of the sheets beneath his arms, he realized he was once more in the medical bay. A soft sleep mask had been put on him to block the always-on lights, one of which was clicking and mocking him, his nemesis. He gritted his teeth and sighed in exasperation. I hate it here. An abrupt giggle came from his left, and he flinched as the realization hit him that he wasn't alone. Two quiet, feminine voices rose and spoke in hushed tones. Where will you have the wedding? I think we'll just have it here, on the Forerunner. It's easier that way, and I can just wear my dress uniform. A loud gasp was followed by the other voice rising in excitement. Unacceptable! I insist we return to Sosaria so we can throw you to a proper wedding, followed by a grand send-off. But I will hear no argument. As queen, it is my prerogative to honor our nation's heroes. Besides, I'm not planning to get married myself, so this is the next best thing. No worries, I was running late on getting started, so We'll all just call this one water under the bridge, right? Lark stilled as the women burst out laughing. His heart sped up, and he ripped the mask from his eyes as he sat up and stared wildly across toward where they sat. Angel and Tessindra were sitting at the side of one of the treatment beds and talking like old friends. Tessindra was pale and looked exhausted, but she was alive, which was what mattered. "Taz!" he shouted, leaped over the bed, and pulled his friend in for a crushing hug. "I thought you died!" She snorted from amusement and squeezed him back. "I'm sure you heard that from Saren. He always assumes the worst. Thanks to the Archblades and your doctor here, I'm very much alive." "What happened?" Lark asked as he broke away, blinking in confusion. Taz patted the spot where the knife had punctured her chest. "I was stabbed here. It was like all the air was kicked out of me. The Archblades healed my wound, but I still couldn't breathe. My soldiers brought me on board as soon as they were able, and Maya took me into surgery. She said air was trapped in my thoracic cavity, and healing the wound only trapped it inside. A quick 10-minute procedure and some time with the regeneration instrument, and I'm good as new." "I'm so happy," he admitted. "I was worried your father would have to pick your cranky uncle as his successor." Tassindra's eyes widened. "He would never! Besides, I have a cousin with 6 wonderful children. I'll choose one of them as my heir when the time is right." Angel approached the pair, put an arm around Lark, and kissed him gently on the cheek. "I'm glad you're all right. I'm glad to see you're all right." Tessindra smiled knowingly before making her exit. She already had a plan to make Lark and Angel's special day as amazing for them as possible. It took 2 days to reach Sosaria, and another 2 for Tessindra to prepare for the wedding. They had settled on a small gathering in the royal gardens, with Okran as officiant, followed by a reception on the Forerunner that would double as a send-off party. This was the last day they would be on Durance, according to Tessindra. It would be memorable. However, after strenuous insistence from the bride and groom, she agreed that the wedding would be small, as they wanted an event shared by only their innermost friends. Lark adjusted the sleeves of his formal wear for the 4th time that hour and kept staring into the mirror. He wore a pure black jacket with a high collar, reminiscent of the Forerunner's dress uniform. His boots had been polished till they gleamed, and around his shoulders was a white cloak with the gold symbol of the Archblades. "You look fine," Bastion reassured him. "I just hate waiting," Lark admitted sheepishly, "especially today." Reynard laughed from the other side of the room as he finished combing his hair. "Hurry up and wait is part of the crewman's life, Lark, and after today, you're one of us. I recommend you enjoy the downtime while it lasts." "Careful, you'll scare him off," Bastion chided, as a palace bell rang in the distance, and he met Lark's eyes in the mirror. "It's time to go." Lark couldn't help but admit that the garden was gorgeous. An archway by a large pond in the center was covered in a thick blanket of white and pink flowers, with several waterbirds gliding atop the crystal blue water. All around him was an idyllic sight filled with bushes of sweet, scented flowers and a lawn of fresh-cut grass. Okran stood beneath the arch with Lark, Bastion, and Reynard on the right side. He was holding a strange disc in his hand. In the center was a fist-sized white crystalline sphere, and from there radiated a silvery disc. 4 gems of different colors were inset in their own groove, with deep lines leading straight to the center sphere. Unseen by others, Okran could feel it vibrate in his hands. Lark stood with his hands folded in front of him. The minutes felt like hours, and just as he was about to ask when things would start, soft music began to play. All eyes turned to watch as Lily slowly walked up the aisle. She wore an indigo-colored dress and held a basket filled with petals that she sprinkled on the white carpet runner. Maya followed behind, wearing a matching dress and carrying a small white bouquet. Suddenly, the music changed, and Lark felt his heart stop. Angel was guided by Dravik, who held himself higher and straighter than Lark had ever seen. Her wedding dress was a long white sheath with tiny crystals sewn on that winked in the light. It had no sleeves, leaving her shoulders bare, and a delicate jeweled necklace hung on her neck. A wedding gift from Beldaz. In her hands was a bouquet of dark purple flowers that he recognized as the ones that had bloomed in her room. tiny sprigs of star canopy leaves arranged with the flowers to give them an ethereal glow. Maddeningly, she wore a veil that covered her face, and Lark desired nothing more than to remove it. At the end of the aisle, Dravik kissed Angel's hand and sat in the front row. On the bride's side was the crew of the Forerunner, as well as Reka, Rillan, and Beldaz. On the groom's side were Varius, Tessindra, Drossen, Calder, and Saren. To Angel and Lark's delight, Tessindra had kept her word about having a small wedding. After passing her bouquet to Maya, she turned to face Lark, and they grasped hands. Once they appeared ready, Ockring cleared his throat. "Friends and allies," he began. "Wait!" Lark exclaimed. With trembling hands, he grasped the edges of Angel's veil and drew it back over her head. "I need to see your eyes," he said softly, grasping her hands again. Ockring smiled and continued. "As captain of the Forerunner, a great responsibility falls upon me. We are here today to celebrate the union of Angel and Lark, our dear friends. They stand before us, having defeated hardships, overcome adversity, and risked death to forge a future for themselves. Now they will read their own vows." He motioned for Lark to speak first. "Angel, I have waited my entire life to find my mate, but never believed it possible. You are every dream realized, every desire fulfilled, and every wish come true. I will cherish each day I get to wake up next to you, and each night with you in my arms. I have more of your love than I could ever deserve, and I swear to spend our life together trying to be worthy of it." Angel's tears were falling freely. Beldaz blew his nose into a large red handkerchief, and the rest of the audience was silently overcome with emotion. "And you, Angel," Ockring said, clearing his throat. "Lark, I thought I had my life together, until you showed up and turned it upside down. You challenge me, you push me to be better, and you make me feel love and devotion in ways I never thought possible. I love every aspect of you, from the way you laugh when you tease me, to the magic that makes up each part of you. I love you, wholly and forever. I can't imagine my life without you, and I can't wait to continue this incredible journey at your side." Ockring held out the disc, and held it under the couple's hands. As one, Lark and Angel touched the white crystal, and a radiant glow started at their fingertips, and climbed their arms until their entire bodies were enveloped in a shimmering cocoon. It was impossible to tell where one began and the other ended. When the light receded, the crystal lost its brilliance, with the last of the white glow fading in their chests. In Sosarian tradition, they had just bound their souls to one another, and cemented their marital bond. Beaming with joy, Ockring raised his hands and spoke, his voice echoing in the garden. "Then, by the authority of my position as captain, I declare you husband and wife, and accept Lark as the newest member of the Forerunner." The audience erupted in cheers and sudden laughter as Lark grabbed Angel and spun her around before planting her feet on the ground and pulling her in for a passionate kiss. When they pulled apart, they both turned and strode proudly down the aisle as husband and wife. The reception was in full swing in the mess hall of the Forerunner. The tables had been pushed to one side, and a delectable spread covered them. "I have got to teach the royal chefs about this," Tessindra gasped, as she devoured her third slice of cake. The recipe was a simple chocolate sponge with vanilla frosting, but the Sosarian queens savored it as though it were a delicacy. "I've never seen you so excited about food," Lark remarked, as he slowly ate his first slice. The happy couple had a place of prominence at the head of the room, and guests slowly approached to give well wishes. "So, what are your plans now, my queen?" Lark teased, as she took a deep drink of ale from Beldaz's stores. The Lord of Stone had a vacation villa on the coast, with a few casks reserved for special occasions. "Now that the conclave is finished, we'll reduce our standing army. We're working with the soldiers to see who can be retrained for what roles, but some will need to retire completely," she answered. "Sounds like a headache," Lark observed, taking another slice. "It's going to be a bureaucratic nightmare," she sighed. "We're also disbanding the Archblades. They'll be reassigned as healers and diplomats. There's already some grumbling, but Saren has already made plans to build hospitals, and the rest are falling in line. He also wants them to learn some conventional medicine, since evidently not everything is fixable with magic. Lark whistled in surprise and glanced at his former commander, who was chatting with Reynard. I thought he'd demand to die with a sword in his hand. Actually, when we saw that last flash of light, and we could just feel that you had killed Darkos, he had tears in his eyes, and said, I could finally stop fighting, Tass explained. But if you tell anyone I said that, I'll exile you from the kingdom. Lark laughed abruptly. I'll be eager to see how your reign goes. Bastion had suggested that I become an official ambassador between Durance and Soledad, so I'll be back before you know it. Her expression softened, and she gave Lark a small hug. Not too soon, I hope. I want lots of stories about your new life when you return. When she broke away from Lark, she held Angel's hands and whispered in her ear, I wish you both the best. You're lucky to have found each other. As Cassandra joined the others, Beldaz approached, with Bastion in tow, and pulled the merry couple in for a big embrace. Congratulations on your union, he proclaimed as he pulled back. And I have a gift for you. Angel touched the necklace and shook her head. Oh no, you've already given me so much. Ah, that was nothing, Beldaz exclaimed before he turned to Lark. I had another stone as big as your fist, and she declined. You have a modest woman there, Lark. Count yourself lucky in that. Bastion cleared his throat as he held a thick black book in his arms. Ah, yes, here we are. We found this, and a whole room's worth of documents when the Stone Shapers and I were digging out Lifesever, he exclaimed, taking the tome from Bastion's hands. This belonged to Darkos. Lark paused as he reached for the book, but now his fingers halted. What am I supposed to do with this? Bastion's eyes widened in shock. Learn! This book might contain untold knowledge that could be useful to you and your journey. He was tempted to refuse, to tell Beldaz to take the book and burn it or bury it under a mountain, but he couldn't. Darkos was deathly serious about some greater threat, and maybe this was the key to learning about it. All right, I'll keep it. I just hope that... Wait, I can't read it. Lark hesitated as he took the book and thumbed through the pages. This is written in the Conclave's language. I'll teach you, Bastion offered excitedly. You strike me as a fast learner. I'm sure by the time we reach Soledad, you'll have a basic understanding to read it. Thank you, Lark said sincerely, and held the book tight. He was apprehensive about anyone else reading it. He wanted to know if it had any information on entropy magic, but deep down, he wanted to know what his father wrote. It's the least I can do, lad, Beldaz responded with equal sincerity. Thanks to you, we're all alive. My people are friends with the Ravagers. Young Calder will be the liaison between us and the pack, and it feels like peace is possible. But, Beldaz exclaimed with a clap of his hands, I have taken too much of the happy couple's time, so I will leave you two to enjoy the rest of the evening. Beldaz inclined his head. Come, Bastion. Reynard says you're unbeatable at arm wrestling. Let's test your mettle against me. Bastion's mouth fell open as he stammered and followed the boisterous man. I really am just a novice. Please don't hurt me. Angel sank back against Lark, and he heard her let out a soft groan. Too many people and too much interaction, he expertly observed and stroked her jawline with his thumb. Mm-hmm, she answered. If they weren't all friends, I'd be hiding in my room right now. Our room, Lark corrected with a playful grin. Oh, that reminds me, she proclaimed and straightened up. The captain is assigning us to one of the larger rooms. Will it have a much nicer bed? He murmured, lowering his head for a kiss. Save that for tonight, a bright voice chirped. Lark groaned and rested his forehead against the nape of Angel's neck. We should have eloped. Perhaps, a second voice laughed. However, we would eventually find you. Drossen and Reka came to a stop before them. Drossen crossed his claws over his chest and bowed at the same time Reka did. Unfortunately, we could not bring you gifts, since we did not take them on the battlefield, Drossen admitted, with a glimmer of amusement in his eyes. Yeah, you should have told us your plans to propose so we could have prepared better. Rude, Reka sighed in mock irritation. You don't need to get us anything, Angel reassured, waving her hands. That is unacceptable, Drossen retorted. For what you have done for us, you deserve something. So, as pack leader, I will bestow upon you the highest honor that I can. So I formally welcome you to my pack. You will have all of the rights and freedoms as any of my other pack members. And If you should have offspring in the future, they will also be welcome. This pact will never be broken, long after I am dust and bones. And it's not much, but I can give you this, Reika offered, and handed Angel a square box she had been carrying. As Angel unlatched the box, Lark's eyes widened. That's a lot of essence magic. The lid fell back and revealed a large star canopy stone. Black, wavy lines looped across its brightly polished surface. It was a perfect ovoid, and Angel ran her fingers along the surface. It's beautiful, she whispered, lifting the stone from its confines. It's yours. We carry them for good luck. And when I knew we'd be fighting the Conclave, I brought the biggest one I had, Rika exclaimed. Thank you, Angel accepted. I'll cherish it forever. A sudden clapping came from the center of the room, and the four turned to see Cassandra standing on a table with her hands above her head. Friends, allies, it is with a heavy heart we must say goodbye to Lark and the Forerunner crew, but that time has come. Please, lift your voices with me and cheer for their continued health and safe return home. Hopefully, this won't be the last time we meet. Everyone, except the crew, raised their fists and began to cheer loudly in rounds. The sound reverberated through the room, and the memory lasted long after they had all left. All right, crew, I want all hands on the bridge in 15 minutes, Akron announced. Angel stayed behind to finish her food, but Lark followed Akron to the bridge, where Lauren and Reynard were already at work. Any news of the Conclave ship? Akron asked Reynard, who was going over data at his console. Ship? What ship? Lark asked, his eyebrows raised. That flying silver speck that came out of Lifesaver after the explosion, Reynard explained carefully. It was some kind of ship. I couldn't shoot it down because of its unique shielding. Unique how? Lark pressed, approaching the tactical officer. If a Conclave necromancer got off this planet, we must find them now. It wasn't just any necromancer, Reynard warned. I'm certain it was Adura. Akron spun around, and Lauren shot a surprised look at her cousin. Explain your reasoning, the captain demanded. Well, I used this scanner that Angel set up. I thought the electrical signature appeared strangely familiar, so I compared the data to the facility where Adura trapped us, and it matched the electrical shield that protected it. Lark faltered and leaned against Akron's console. So Adura's loose in the universe right now, and we have no way of following him? Not quite, Reynard said with a large smile. See, the signal is unique in two ways. It has a shifting signature that seems random, but it has a cascading electrical frequency pattern. A bit complex at first, but once you get the hang of it, then... And the second way? Akron asked, redirecting his tactical officer, who was acting more like his historian. There are faint traces of entropy magic in his trail. Not enough to corrupt anything, I believe, but enough that we can use it. I think we can use it to track him, Reynard reported. His chest puffed up with pride. Good work, Akron praised. Now, the others will be here any minute, so let's put a pin in the Adura talk until tomorrow. Tonight, we're still celebrating. The rest of the crew arrived, and Angel went to Lark's side. He kissed her temple and pulled her close. Lauren, take us up, Akron ordered. There was a tiny jolt as the ship lifted and slowly began to ascend rather than taking off. Lauren guided them to the city's center. So, what are we doing? She asked as the crew stood while watching the view screen. Taz said to hover the Forerunner over the castle and point our bow to the ocean, Akron shared with a shrug. She didn't say why. After a few minutes, Lauren sighed and stared at her console. Maybe we should contact her. Something must be... Look! Lily cried and pointed to the screen. Everyone watched in amazement as explosions of color rose from every corner of Sosaria, highlighted against the night sky. Lark squeezed Angel's bare shoulders and felt a welling of joy at the parting gift that his friend had given. She did promise to make it memorable, Angel remarked. That she did, he murmured. I haven't seen a fire show like this since Varius turned 60. It's good to be friends with the Queen, Angel observed. The display lasted for half an hour until the grand finale, where dozens of white lights rose in straight lines. In a unified explosion, they burst and spelled out a single word. Farewell. That's our cue, Akron said as he wiped his eyes. Let's hit the stars, Lauren. Yes, sir, Lauren agreed, her voice strained with emotion. The ship turned, and with a last gaze at the home he'd had for nearly 25 years, Lark felt a welling of anticipation for what was to come. When they had broken through the atmosphere, Lark stared, amazed at the universe before him. "It's beautiful," he breathed. "Careful, it's addicting," Akron chuckled. "I took my first interstellar flight when I was 12, and I haven't looked back since." Angel trailed her fingertips up Lark's arm and shot him a coy smile. "I'm going to get our new quarters set up. You enjoy the view for a bit, and when you're done, come find me." Lauren giggled at the exchange and excused herself to get coffee from the mess hall. The rest of the crew dispersed until it was just Lark and Akron. "So, I married Angel and I'm part of the fold now?" Lark asked, preparing for his big question. Akron laughed and nodded. "There will be more boring details to deal with later, but for now, we're acknowledging you as one of us and Angel's husband." "Good," Lark grinned, a determined glint in his eyes. "Because now that the conclave is dealt with, I want you to tell me all about the children of Alpha." There's a trailing Y there. I'm not sure if that was intentional there. And it looks like that's the end of the book proper. Now we have a bit of a preview for a couple pages as we see what there is to come. Here is a small glimpse into the continued story in Oathbound, coming soon. The transmission flickered as the leaders of Soledad moved on to their final questions. "Now, what is your status?" Akron pulled out his own datapad, and his eyes bounced back and forth between reading information and watching the monitor. "We are heading back to Soledad on our plotted course. We should be back in approximately 4 months, barring any surprises." You are also in pursuit of the fugitive necromancer Adura, correct?" Ethan asked. "Yes, I don't know why, but the entropy trail he left behind seems to be mostly going in the same direction we are. And it seems he has a way to travel at faster than light speeds as well," Akron agreed, with obvious concern in his voice. "Are you certain?" Ethan leaned forward. "The trail itself was lost a month ago. However, its path was steadily heading towards Soledad. Even now, we occasionally detect trace amounts of entropy magic on our path home, so I am certain, as I can be, with the information at hand," Akron asserted. "Good. We don't want a monster like that loose in the galaxy. Assuming he does not reach us before you, your new orders are to ensure his capture any way you can, and bring him back here, alive." Ethan straightened his back and spoke in a booming tone that brokered no debate. Akron's composure slipped as he stared at the leaders with wide-eyed shock. "I don't understand, sir. Adura is from Durance, and the people there suffered far greater from his actions than we have. He should be brought to justice there." "We don't have time for you to turn around, Captain. While obviously his capture is a priority to stop more atrocities, we need you here as soon as possible. You have your orders," Morgan interjected with the same judicious tone. Akron straightened his posture and saluted without a further word. Each of the Triumvirate's monitors went dark until only Brianna remained. She looked around to be sure they were alone before nodding to Akron that he could speak freely. "I'm not comfortable bringing that maniac home with us, Bree. Why do they care so much about Adura?" Akron asked as he folded his arms. "I don't think it's as much about Adura as it is that they want this business wrapped up so you can hurry back here and upgrade the fleet." She sighed deeply, before hesitating and looking at him intently. "There's more, but I need your word that it stays between us." "Of course," he answered without a thought. Aside from his wife, he trusted his old commander more than anyone. "Alpha has taken over 2 star systems," she reported in hushed tones. Her normally calm features betrayed hints of fear. "Our long-range sensors show that his fleet has more than tripled in size, and he has been reaching out even further. He hasn't made any direct moves against us, but the skirmishes we've had against his forces all tell us the same thing. We won't be able to stop him when he does." Akron's face paled. When they had left nearly a year before, the children of Alpha were a looming threat that occupied their waking thoughts. But this was much worse than he could have possibly imagined. "So you're hoping that the elemental frequency upgrades will save us," he finally responded. "Every other exploration vessel has come back with nearly nothing," she continued. "Some new species here, some new elements there. We have a great way to increase the storage and processing power of your datapads when you get back." She managed a small smile. "But nothing that will help us against Alpha. We need those upgrades. We need the improved fuel source, so if this Defiler person is as powerful as you say he is, we will need his help before things get even more out of hand." "I understand that. And you have my word that we will be home as soon as we can, he promised. But I still think bringing Adora to Soledad would cause more problems than they are bargaining for. Do you have an alternative? Something that can be done to neutralize him so someone from Durance can pick him up? She inquired hopefully. Give me a better plan, and I will bring it up to the Triumvirate immediately. Awkward's shoulders slumped in defeat. He had wrestled with that same idea for some time now, and he was no closer to a solution. Taking a deep breath, he shook his head and gave her a solemn look. We could just destroy him. She startled and cast a glance around her as though someone might appear at any moment. Satisfied she was still alone, she slowly answered, I wish that was an option. From what you've told us, the bastard deserves it. Many times over. But you know how Estede feels about capital punishment. Then that detention ship from Varus blew up in our orbit a few years back. So we have to be extra careful when it comes to our treatment of prisoners. Arkhan ran a hand through his hair and groaned in frustration. It had been an accident, but it nearly caused a catastrophic breakdown of relations with their allied planet. And right now, we need all the allies we have, he finished. Exactly, Brianna replied, looking almost relieved. Fine, Arkhan said as he pointed at the screen, his eyes flashing with anger. I want to make sure he is kept in stasis, or some other way to guarantee that he is harmless until we get him back to Durance. Give me your word that he won't be studied or experimented on. I don't care if the Triumvirate believes me or not, but entropy magic is not something to be played with, and neither is Adora. Brianna flinched, as though struck, and she glared at her former junior officer. Just as quickly as it began, though, her face smoothed to a mask of calm. I promise. As far as I know, our interest in Adora is only to bring him to justice, here, and return him to his people. Arkhan wanted to press more about what, as far as she knew, truly meant. But he'd seen that look before. She was an impenetrable wall. He knew she was already crossing her professional boundaries and confiding in him. Not wanting to end on a bad note, he saluted her and managed a small smile. Thank you, ma'am. I'll do my best to carry out my orders. I know you will, soldier. There's no one I trust more to do this. So hurry home, and be careful, she answered. Her stern demeanor softened, and she sounded almost affectionate before the transmission ended. Arkhan slumped into his chair and rubbed his face intensely. He needed some time to compile the information in his head before talking to his wife, and silently wishing he could tell his crew everything he had learned. All right, that is the end of the preview, the end of the book. So we're left with the tantalizing prospect of Adora out in the wild. Just kind of called it, but we know there's more to be seen, more to be done. The story and the magic of Durance isn't written off in this series of what's to come. So we have more to look forward to. There's the slimy weasel of Magic Starscream is still out there, and we will have to wait and see what will come of him and what sort of trouble he'll be able to bring to the Soledad systems as well as the crew of the Forerunner. So we'll see what there is. But on the brighter side, we had our happy ending for this book. This chapter of the story is put to a close on a high note. The Durance system is safe for the time being. Lark and Angel found their happily ever after, for now at least. And the crew is welcomed Lark as a new member of the family. So with the end of one chapter and the slew of goodbyes comes a new beginning for everyone that is on the Forerunner as well as Lark as they go out amongst the stars. But it looks like there may be some trouble brewing with the Triumvirate. Presumably the ruling council as such of Soledad, or at least military authority. And there might be something brewing beneath the scenes, beneath the surface there. So we'll have to wait patiently and find out. I'm not sure how much of these it is. Do you have the second book written yet, or is it on its way? I'm not sure. How long should we hold our breath on this one? But we'll see. We'll see. Ah, good. Oh, I think I saw you post about that. You put the pen to paper for the finish of the first draft. So now begins the long and arduous review and proofreading process and editing drafts and so on and so forth. Do you have your own editor, or do you do it in-house? That is part of the process. You can't aim for perfection, but you want to get as close as you can, right? Yeah, for sure. Um, so are you fully self-published, or is there like a small publishing house that you've gone through to get this out? Um, I'm really not super familiar with the indie scene. I know I've got a friend of mine does, or a coworker does a little bit of writing, and his first book was self-published, but then put out through like Amazon. But um, I know it's pretty I guess it's easier these days to be a fully self-published author than it would have been a while ago, because you can go to the big box stores and get your sort of um, you can get the print runs, the limited print runs. You can get the ebooks, which ebooks are wonderful for accessibility. Um, so that helps, and you're not giving a big publisher your soul as you sign on the dotted line. But for the distribution and marketing side of things, you kind of hope to make it and get a big publisher, right? That's the dream anyway. Indie is great, but if you really want to make it big, you kind of need someone behind you. But shopping around for publishers is probably the least fun part of being an author, I imagine. No one wants to do that. So, what do you guys think? We've got a few of us here. I enjoyed this quite a lot. It was sort of a casual read. Not to be offensive or anything, but it felt like it didn't take itself too seriously. It was nice to sit back, enjoy the story as it came through. It was very approachable, sort of like an everyman's fiction sort of style. So it felt comfy to read. The themes and the story beats were familiar and comfortable, but with their own twist and flavor that were unique to this. Um, I myself haven't read a whole lot of um, sci-fi fantasy the genre. I've read plenty of sci-fi and lots of fantasy, but the intersection is not a whole lot of. It doesn't have a whole lot of presence. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Um, I was talking to my brother the other night, and that's kind of the space that you see a lot of, that you see some writers kind of aim for and really thrive. Kind of like a Sanderson style, where it's not like crazy high literature. It's kind of down to earth and accessible. It's not going to scare people off, and you can just sort of sit down and really dig into it and have fun with it. It's not homework. It's just sitting down and having fun with a book. So I think you definitely hit your target spot on there. Um, and it's not like you're writing for like kids. It's definitely, there was some complexity and some intricacy in the writing, but it wasn't anything to really scare people off. So you hit it right where you were aiming there. But yeah, as I was saying, the story beats were comfortable. The plot twists were not like tired. There were things that we were somewhat expecting as being familiar with fiction in general, but the way you played them out and the way the characters interacted with and overcame the things that they came across worked out really well. Um, it was engaging without being too much. You're not like trying to throw curveballs left and right. It was like, yes, there were tropes, and yes, there are things like certain story things felt like, yeah, expected, but that's not bad. See, yeah, exactly. It's the for genre fiction and for a first foray into this, it was everything we could have wanted. So yeah, they had a lot of fun. So I'd like to thank you again for giving us the chance to read this. Um, I know it kind of goes both ways. You get a little bit of a little bit of exposure. We got a small community around here, but the the thoughts from others are probably helpful. I hope. But we had a great time reading it, and I thank you very much for allowing us to experience this together. Um, so it's as I mentioned in earlier streams, we usually just we read stuff in the public domain, so much older works. So getting something contemporary was super exciting. Oh man, Star Ocean games, lordy. Okay, yeah, I think that's a good call out there. 'Cause that's actually probably the closest to like sci-fi fantasy that you see in the almost mainstream. But yeah, it definitely has. You hit a lot of the vibes from like the late '80s, early '90s sci-fi specials. Um, so it kind of, I'm not sure if that's where you pulled a lot of your inspirations from, but just the general like vibe and feeling hit that spot on. All right. Well, tell you what, I'm going to take a few minutes to check on the cats and stretch my legs a little bit. You guys feel free to chat. I'm going to gather my thoughts, and then we'll be back in just a little bit to continue this conversation and see if anybody has anything to add. Um, Constructive criticisms, just lavish praise, um, and we'll just go from there. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, we are back. Let me catch up real quick. You know what? I agree. The the mass market appeal stuff is definitely um, it gets tired. It really quickly. You see the same things play out in the same ways because they're popular, and so while they can be fine and just good empty head entertainment, um, it's totally fine to be more niche, to enjoy the other things that are out there. Uh, so finding discoveries of small independent authors, writers, producers, game designers, anything. Like it's totally fine to just like your own niche. It doesn't need to be popular. It doesn't need to have mainstream appeal. If you enjoy it, great. I'm sure there's a community of like-minded people that can enjoy it just as well. Yeah, it's you are stupendously humble and gracious as far as giving out your praise for your inspirations and where you went to your wife for assistance. Um, that's something that we all can really hope to see more and more of. I'm not saying that it's absent in a lot of places, but it's always refreshing. And yeah, I think we did skip over the acknowledgments at the very beginning. That was, oh yeah, definitely. So, and that's one thing that can never be overstated. Indie authors, producers, publishers, coders, so much of their work is dependent on and contingent upon the support structure around them, whether it be a supportive spouse or family that is wholeheartedly allowing and encouraging them to pursue their hobbies and passions as it becomes maybe a new profession, or even just someone who steps back and gives things a chance. Um, it could be test readers that normally wouldn't read fiction, but will read things for you anyway and give their own honest thoughts. It could be people that you get ideas from or inspiration from. Uh, as we mentioned during our readings, it can be really hard to write something that you don't know and have experience in. So if you've got a character in mind that has a certain personality trait that really resonates with some of your friends or acquaintances, talking to them and getting their perspective and how their thought processes would work towards a certain encounter or certain situation can really set things off and how to develop the story and character in a way that you would never understand or be able to put to pen on your own. So having people around you is so incredibly important, and being able to realistically and humbly accept that your own work isn't necessarily all your own. Being able to say, okay, all these people that supported and helped me were exactly what we needed to get this out. It showed really well here. The women they were still women. It wasn't like, because there's the two options. You have the badly written women from male writers that just are completely either Mary Sue's or helpless, like the just very one-dimensional flat characters that are characterizations of their own traits. And then there's the opposite, where they're like, you strip out anything that could make them feminine, anything that could make them come across as women, just in order to have a female character that is strong and independent, but they lose any trace of their femininity. So I think you hit that pretty well, is the balance of having characters that are human. They're women that have responsibilities and jobs, and they're every bit as strong and independent on their own, but they're still women. They're not just cutouts. So you did well there. Angel was a wonderful character. The others that they each had their own flair. Lily was there. That was the sort of, I took her as kind of the bubbly sort, but then you had Maya as the motherly doctor of the ship. But every bit as important and vital and real as the rest of the crew. So yeah, it's a good focus that is difficult to play off. So well done. So let's see. We can take a few minutes here. I can go back through. Yeah, I'd love to. When you're ready, feel free to hit me up. I'd love to be able to continue reading this for everyone around here. By then, maybe we'll have more of an audience. Maybe not. It could just be the core group here. But even if it's not, I enjoyed it quite a bit. And so long as I'm still reading on stream like this, I would love to read the sequel. Well, don't feel like you have to rush. The process is the process, and sometimes the gap between first draft and final draft it's a journey, shall we say. So don't feel like you need to rush it. So why don't we take a few minutes and we can kind of browse through my bookmarks and chapters here just to see if there's any sort of point in times that we want to revisit and take a look at and discuss, and just have an idea of what the characters were thinking at the time, what they were doing, and with the retrospective that we have now of how things finished in this first book, if that sort of forethought and foreknowledge would color how we see their interactions at any given point. So let's see. At the end of the first night, we made it to chapter 7. So that was right when Lark had met the crew and they've linked up. He had rescued them from Adora, and they've gone through and done the first interactions there. They met the Withered and all that fun stuff. So actually, you know what? That brings me to right at the beginning. I wonder if there's anything that we can sort of pick out in the crew's interactions before they even made planetfall, that can sort of hint at what they're coming from. I know at the very end they had mentioned, or there had been hints dropped throughout the book of the children of Alpha, and we saw in the preview that Alpha seems to be an entity of its own. So I wonder if there's early on any sort of interactions in the way the characters are approaching the planetfall that can sort of bring some hints to how things went. Um, so, just browsing through, I don't see anything that really calls out to me, but the dynamic is still they've got the more militant background there. Right, yeah. Yeah, the what the more of the backstory is with the children of Alpha and Alpha themselves, um, is definitely you left the trail of breadcrumbs to keep us interested. Um, you have to wonder if it's like a quasi-religious movement, whether it's like a von Neumann machine that has the children or the others that have gone out, um, whether you've got uh, Alpha is a Veigar style entity that has gained sentience. So there's a lot of different options and directions the story could take that you're not really pigeonholed into anything just yet, but um, it definitely leaves us tantalized and ready and wanting to know more. So early on, we definitely saw that. Um, oh, okay. Let me actually see if I can pull that up. Oh yeah, okay. So to bring that quote in. So this was Akron and Maya talking, and Akron said, "This is a lot more than we signed up for. Fighting the children of Alpha is one thing, but this involves magic and forces we can't hope to match. Give me one of their martyred over a pack of those things any day." Um, so that definitely has sort of religious connotations and the overbearing sort of weight of that. So that's some hint um, of what the children of Alpha could be. And really, the children of has enough connotations and weight of its own. It sort of lend itself toward that. But you're right. You're absolutely right. Having the author here is great because as we go through this, some of those references can be missed because, I mean, that's just the nature of it. It's little offhanded comments that they don't seem important at the time, or they may have been, but in the flow of reading the story and as we really get into it, it's easy to just gloss things over. And then as you're looking back like this, you're just like, oh, it clicks. And you just think, oh, yes, absolutely. That was important, wasn't it? All right. Um, let's see. So beyond the drops of the drip feed of information and hints at what the next conflict will be, um, is there anything that anyone really wants to just get out of their heads or really think about how things played out at certain story beats that they particularly liked or thought could have been done differently or betrayed expectations in perhaps a good way? Um, I, for one, liked how you played out Adura. At the very start, he felt like the helpful hand that they met the first off, but even at that first interaction, there was something under the surface. You knew he was kind of skeezy, um, and it was really clear as soon as they started showing any sort of suspicion that there was something going on. Um, and then how he just kept coming out of the woodwork. There were the two following interactions. The one where he trapped them in the electrical and Yeah, Angel definitely helps there. We have so many of her perspectives in the chapters that it's very easy to identify with her, and you see her inner thoughts. And when she immediately is repulsed by him, you're just like, oh, all right, there's something that's not quite right here. Because you may not have caught on that he just get overly friendly or pushing for always referencing the technology. It's like, okay, he's kind of pushy, but maybe not really bad. But Angel catching on that he's off certainly helps the reader, for sure. And actually, I wonder if the other of the crew had the same sort of feeling. I think Angel mentioned it, and Akron acknowledged it, but you have to wonder if Angel hadn't said anything, if the rest of the crew would have just sort of let things develop. I wonder that she's got a quite a high level of empathy there, and so being able to catch things out as she's just not quite seeing it, not quite seeing the things play out as expected, is sort of a skill and a quality that not everyone has. Yeah, sometimes you just get a bad vibe. Yeah, until that random message came through. Um, but how often are you going to trust a random message that from providence unknown against someone who seems to be helpful in the moment? Um, Now I understand they're coming in and they're wondering and treating everything as a potential threat, which is a very given their military background and the militaristic styling of the Solid-Headed's expeditions and the Forerunner's crew, it's understandable to have some suspicion of everything. But yeah, you're right. So having the unknown of the message against the potentially known but unfamiliar first contact is something. That actually, the mention of first contact actually brings up um, the coincidence of everyone. Oh yeah, absolutely. Akron just like he just had enough of everyone wanting on his damn ship. So I think he was very happy to comply with the message of don't let him on the ship because he's just like, no, stop it, it's my ship, stay off. Um, so that was it played in nicely. Um, but I think the coincidence of everyone speaking the same core language, having the everyone of the same sort of backgrounds, as it was shown later in the story, it's a common origin, but it had to have been severely off-putting because there's just no way that it just works like that. I know they had mentioned that the translator never even engaged in conversations. So, and that early in the story, you had to wonder whether it was some sort of ability of the people that they were interacting with that sort of was auto-translating, whether it would be some sort of like telepathic element where they were like just transitioning and speaking the language local, and as we found out more and more, that wasn't the case at all. Yeah. Um, so like so you see it a lot in like Star Trek and the such, where they just have magic translators that just work or will pick things up after a little bit of conversation. But or you'll get the like the hand waved version of things from in other media where it's from a reader's or a listener's perspective, they're not speaking the same language, but the characters understand each other, so they're at least bilingual or have some translator that's not shown that the reader may not be familiar with. So in this case, where there's a conspicuous lack of language barriers, where it was entirely expected there to be a barrier, was a bit of a shock in and of itself. So that was a consistent plot point that you tied in very well later on to their shared origins and the Conclave using the sort of archaic language that both had more or less forgotten. And the fact that the Conclave saw that language as not as anachronistic, but as like their own secret code was kind of interesting in itself. It's they've sort of gone past the point of remembering, because it seems like the Conclave has the longest memories of the peoples on Duritz. But despite that, it seems that they've sort of forgotten that they'd come from another place and that it was an anachronistic language that they were using and not a code, or not their own language. So that's an interesting point there, is that while they may be the secret agency in the shadows, they're also a product of Durance, just as much as everything else. Right. That's a good point. And then we saw in the pre-chapter things, and actually, so the little blurbs at the start of each chapter, we saw in the last chapter that it was Darkos leaving a message to Lark. So I have to wonder how many of those are blurbs, maybe from the book that Darkos left for Lark. Maybe all of them are. I don't know if there's any sort of cohesion, but that could be something interesting. Aha! I thought so. That's a nice little snippet there. So I wonder if it's sort of a line taken out of context, or are they all like some from anything that we'll see more? Yeah, so we had no real idea until the very end. And yeah, the for some reason it just felt like Darkos. The characterization of it, especially the last one, kind of clicked. But I think as we've seen through, or as we've seen in the readings, sometimes I kind of can see through the fog of any intended obfuscation. And other times I'm completely wrong. It happens. There were a few points where we were kind of called things ahead of time, but not in a bad way. Like I mentioned earlier, you do use tropes, but that's not a negative. That's not anything bad. We mentioned in an earlier stream that tropes are an anchor point for people getting into fiction, particularly genre fiction, where we can latch onto it and find that comfort level and really reconnect. So they're vehicles for you to give the reader somewhere that is comfortable. And the complete absence of tropes can be something in and of itself, where if you go completely out of left field and intend for the reader to be uncomfortable, and you don't give them those points to anchor themselves, that can have a tremendous effect in and of itself. So that's something that maybe you can explore later. I don't know. All right, gang. Well, I don't know if I've got any other questions for the author at this point. I will say I very much enjoyed reading this. Thank you very much for giving the permissions and for approaching us in the first place. And we'll look forward to you having the sequel written. And you are always welcome to join us for as we go through any other readings. Yeah, and you're right. Like any sort of criticisms or nitpicks are just formatting and editing, and that's for a self-written, self-published author that, especially without an editor in the first place, there are a few points where like word choice may have been a little awkward, but that's to be expected. You're honing your craft as you go. And it's nothing that really was bad or felt wrong. It just, there were certain points where you're just like, oh yeah, that flow felt a little off, but it was fine. So I don't really have any, like Akamos, I don't have any real criticisms. I think I have a unique perspective of the reading aloud sort of forces me to take things from the lens of natural language and how things go through. And that may not be the same sort of perspective that most readers have. Yeah, and so as author mentions, his link tree is in the comments or in the description of this and any of the previous streams. I encourage everyone to follow, reach out, give props over on Bluesky. At the end of the book, the author lists out some of their other contacts. The link tree has links to the storefronts where you can buy a copy for yourself. So support the indie authors. Let this author know, and any others that you are about, know that we wholeheartedly support their work and want them to continue. There's nothing that says that you must read huge authors. You must read mainstream fiction. You must read this. You must read that. Read what you want. Find people that you enjoy reading and interact with the authors. That's one of the best parts about smaller scale content creators and authors. You can have that personal touch. They're not too big for the people. So things like this, I'd never imagine doing with a huge author. And yeah, the book itself, very affordable. I think my copy was like $5 or $6. So I do wholeheartedly recommend everyone to pick up a copy for themselves. If you haven't already, I have been approached by a couple people that have already bought copies for themselves that have been introduced from the stream. So I hope you can sort of spread the word. It's a nice, fun read, approachable for anyone. If they may not, for people that may not be genre readers, may not be sci-fi fans, may not be fantasy fans, maybe they are and just haven't found it. This is a good entry point. It's fun. The author is actively working on further entries in the series, which is one of the biggest complaints I've always had about genre fiction. Is so often authors will just drop off the face of the earth. So you'll find a series you love and would love nothing more than to continue reading, and there's nothing. So the fact that you're actively working on this, and I already have the first draft for the next one done and are working on fine-tuning it, is wonderful news. Alright guys, I think we may wrap up a little early tonight. I say a little, it's about 45 minutes, but I'm only so much of a yapper. There's and yes, we appreciate the passion. It comes through in your writing. And we look very much forward to the next installment. But for now, I think we will wrap up for the evening. I might try and actually get some dinner before everything closes around here. Thank you again for introducing us to the book and offering and suggesting that we read it. And thank you so much for being with us every night through the stream. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you joining us for every installment. It's been invaluable to have you here to bounce ideas off of, and really it helps liven up the chat. It adds something to the stream when it's not just me rambling on. I know that's what the whole premise of the series is me rambling on and reading books, but it's brought so much more to life by you guys in the chat and the author being here, and so we can bounce ideas off each other. So I hope this has been valuable for you. I hope that you have mentioned in some Bluesky posts that this was nerve-wracking as we were getting started, but you were so comforted by things once it got going. I hope this is a good experience for you, and it can lead potentially to you getting more exposure, or just being more comfortable with pushing your book out and being more engaged with the community out there, so that more people can enjoy this wonderful story you've put together. The characters were engaging and lovely to get to know, and I really hope that more people can learn to can come and find these characters and stories and come to love them as well. Alrighty, guys. With that, I am going to wrap up for the night. We will, as always, open up suggestions for what we want to read next. Probably I'll be posting on Bluesky, but if anyone cares to drop a comment either in the chat or a comment on the videos in YouTube, or toss me a line on Bluesky for any suggestions or things they would like us to read, I am always receptive. Otherwise, I will go back to the old standby, and we'll see. What did we read? What was our last thing? We did Sophocles, and before that, was that the King in Yellow before? Or no, it was Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights. Maybe we'll go back to weird. We had King in Yellow. Maybe we'll actually take up Lovecraft or something. I don't know. We'll see. But I've got some ideas of my own. But if anyone has any suggestions, I will be more than happy to have things jump the queue, and we can enjoy them together. That's one of the best things about this series in general, or in this platform, is we can read things that we normally wouldn't. I know if it were my choice, I'd continually fall back on like fantasy things for my own personal readings. But for this, it really gives the chance to read things that I maybe wouldn't have thought to. Maybe I read Once Upon a Time in high school for a reading, and it's been years and years and years. And so this sort of chance to expand our horizons together is one of the best parts of doing these series and these readings. So if anyone has any suggestions or things they've been thinking of reading but never got around to, or is a personal favorite of their own that they want to experience together with the rest of us, that sort of thing is wonderful, and I always encourage suggestions, and I'm happy to take them up. So I try not to think of it as a service. This is just me reading to the room, and if people enjoy it, wonderful. I recognize that it is something that not everyone gets into, but I love it. I love reading and literature and books in general, and the written word is a beautiful thing that more and more people should experience. And I find that the audience is not nearly as plentiful as we would like. Yeah, it's all to the greater good. That is absolutely true. So it might be the sort of thing that I'm doing for my own self-satisfaction. I'd be reading otherwise, but I'm reading in front of a camera. But the fact that we can share it with others and make it more bite-sized and approachable to others is great. And if it inspires anyone to read on their own, if they've liked something or found a book that they've liked on the streams, or an author they like and they've gone to explore it on their own, I couldn't be happier. So I'll go ahead and wrap things up here. I thank you once again, everyone, for joining us on these readings. Thank you very much to the author for approaching us and pulling us into his world as we read and enjoyed this wonderful story, Archblade, Legend of the Defiler. We look forward eagerly to the next installment, whenever it might be ready. Um, and until then, we'll continue as we normally will, with new readings and new discoveries together. Our next stream will be on Tuesday night. I'll come up with something to read by then, whether we go back to Sophocles for the last of the great Theban plays, or if we have a new book and a new series to start at that time. We'll leave that up to fate to decide. Alright, thanks everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you again for joining us, and have a good night.